I had saved every spare dollar for months, skipping lunches at work, cutting back on every personal expense, just to join my family on their annual summer trip to the Outer Banks, a trip they somehow always managed to take without me, either by forgetting to tell me the dates or insisting there wasn't enough space in the rental house. This year, though, when I found the booking confirmation in our shared email, I decided to go, hoping that maybe, for once, I would feel like part of the family instead of the distant, obligatory afterthought they treated me as. But the moment I stepped through the airy coastal doorway of the beach house, suitcase still rolling behind me, everything inside me tightened. My mom paused mid-sentence, exchanged a look with my sister that lasted a little too long, and gave a smile that didn't reach her eyes. My brother didn't bother pretending, he just muttered, loud enough for me to hear, "You shouldn't have come," as if my presence was an inconvenience rather than a simple attempt to spend time with people who were supposed to love me. My sister immediately rushed past me to claim the best room overlooking the ocean, her voice bright and cheerful as she called dibs on the queen bed with a balcony. My parents, of course, had already taken the master suite. That left me with the tiny storage room beside the laundry closet, barely big enough for the sagging twin mattress shoved against the wall, the air thick with the scent of dust and detergent. I tried to swallow my disappointment as I set my bag down, telling myself the room didn't matter, that I was here for the experience, for togetherness, for maybe a chance to belong. But the cracks in that hope grew quickly. At dinner that first night, seated around a long wooden table with a view of the sunset painting the sky orange and pink, they talked over me like I wasn't even there, laughing about inside jokes I wasn't part of, planning activities without asking whether I wanted to join, and whispering to each other whenever I tried to add something to the conversation. My sister even joked loudly, "Wow, you're being really clingy this trip," and everyone laughed except me. When I offered to cook breakfast the next morning, wanting to contribute, wanting to show I could make things easier, my mom waved me off with a dismissive flick of her hand. "We'll handle it," she said. But the moment they needed something, fresh towels, sunscreen, a grocery run, someone to carry their beach bags, suddenly I was useful again. "Can you grab this, Emily? Can you run out and get more ice? Can you go back to the house and bring the portable speaker?" It wasn't lost on me that they treated me like a servant, not a daughter, and yet they acted annoyed whenever I tried to spend even a moment of quality time with them. The breaking point came on the third evening. I returned from picking up a dinner order they had sent me to get alone, only to find the house silent. Their bags were gone from the hallway, the living room empty, the kitchen dark. Confused, I checked the counter and found a note written in my sister's handwriting, a perfectly curved heart dotting the I. "We planned a sunset boat cruise. It's for people who know how to have fun. See you later." I stared at the words until they blurred, the mocking tone sinking deeper and deeper into my chest. They had planned a family activity and intentionally excluded me, leaving me to eat takeout alone in a quiet house. But instead of going back inside, I walked all the way to the pier, the wooden planks cool under my sandals, just in time to see their charter boat drift away from the dock. I spotted them, my sister laughing loudly at something my brother said, my mom adjusting her hair for a picture, my dad pointing toward the horizon with a smile I hadn't seen directed at me in years. Not one of them noticed me standing there. Not one of them cared. As the boat moved farther away, the sound of their laughter blended with the crashing waves, and something inside me cracked, not the kind of crack that breaks, but the kind that reveals something new beneath the surface. I wasn't going to cry. Not for them. Not again. Instead, a calm settled over me, quiet and strong, like the sea right before a storm. If they wanted a vacation without me, if they wanted me to disappear into the background unless they needed something, if they believed I wasn't worthy of their time, their attention, or even a seat on a boat they booked using the planning I had done, then fine. I would give them exactly the vacation they deserved. A vacation they would remember long after the sunburn faded and the photos were posted online. I turned away from the dock, my footsteps steadier than they had been in years, and for once, I didn't feel small. I felt powerful. They didn't know it yet, but everything about this trip was about to change. I didn't scream argue or confront them when they returned from their sunset cruise, laughing like they hadn't just abandoned me. Instead, I simply slipped into the background, moving quietly through the house like a shadow they didn't notice, the kind of silence that comes right before a storm. Their cruelty had settled into me like sand in my shoes, irritating, grinding, and impossible to ignore. And as I lay awake listening to their muffled conversations through the thin walls, I realized something. My family relied on me for everything. They loved to dismiss me, mock me, and treat me like a burden. But the truth was they depended on me more than they would ever admit. I was the one who handled all the planning, all the booking, all the coordination, because they were too disorganized to do it themselves. They trusted me with their passwords, their emails, and their reservations. They didn't think twice about giving me access to everything because Emily has time, because she'd take care of it, because that's the least she can do. They had no idea that the same access they handed me so carelessly was about to turn into the very thing that cracked their perfect vacation apart. So while they snored in their comfortable rooms, the ocean breeze drifting through their open windows, I opened my laptop in my tiny storage room bed and began my quiet payback. First, I checked the inbox and found every confirmation they had bragged about. My dad's fishing charter that he'd been boasting about for weeks, my sister's parasailing session she planned to film for Instagram, and me mom's luxurious spa appointment she had been dreaming about since March. All of it was under my control. And with a calmness that surprised even me, I clicked into each reservation and canceled it. Not rescheduled. Not postponed. Canceled. The fishing charter had a strict no-refund policy for last-minute tech cancellations, which meant my dad's outrage would be directed entirely at the incompetent booking staff, never realizing I was the one who pulled the plug. My sister's parasailing session was in high demand and instantly filled by someone on the wait list, leaving her no chance of getting it back. My mom's spa appointment was gone with a single click, replaced by a fully booked calendar that stretched for weeks. I watched each email confirmation pop up one after another, tiny digital victories lighting up the screen. But I was nowhere near done. Next, I changed the Wi-Fi password to something only I knew, a petty but deeply satisfying act considering how addicted my family was to their phones, social media, and endless streaming. Without Wi-Fi, they would be helpless. Then, with a small, wicked grin, I opened their phone settings and adjusted every alarm to ring at 4 a.m., not 4:05. Not 4:15, but exactly 4 a.m. A time guaranteed to rip them out of sleep in the most miserable way possible. And because my sweetness had always been their weakness, they had all given me their phone passcodes over the years without a second thought. Finally, for the masterpiece of the night, I registered their names for a mandatory eco-waste disposal volunteer training, hosted by the local community at Sunrise. A simple Google form submission, no verification required, and suddenly my entire family was expected to show up at 6 a.m. sharp, wearing gloves and closed-toe shoes, items they definitely didn't pack. By the time I closed my laptop, the sky began to pale with the first hints of dawn, and exhaustion finally washed over me. But instead of feeling defeated, I felt electric, alive, and strangely free. When the alarms exploded at 4 a.m., the peace of the house was shattered instantly. My sister screamed first, followed by my mom's panicked groan and my dad's angry stomping. I stayed perfectly still, listening as chaos bloomed around me like a fire they had accidentally set. "Why is the Wi-Fi down?" My sister shrieked. "My spa appointment is gone." My mom cried from the hallway. "What do you mean the fishing trip was canceled?" My dad roared into the phone as if the router had insulted him personally. And then came the final blow. They opened their email to find the cheerful confirmation of their volunteer obligation. "We have to pick up trash?" "At 6 in the morning?" My brother groaned, sounding like his soul was leaving his body. I smiled into my pillow, not guilt-ridden, not conflicted, just satisfied. When they knocked on my door demanding help, I pretended I was half asleep, shrugging, saying, "I don't know. Maybe the system messed up again," while inside, I was savoring every second of their confusion and frustration. By the time they rushed around trying to fix their morning disaster, I had already taken the car keys, the same car they forced me to drive them, around in like their unpaid chauffeur and slipped out of the house quietly. I drove along the coast with the windows down, the salty air whipping through my hair, feeling freer than I had in years. I checked into a gorgeous oceanfront hotel, but they didn't know I had booked weeks earlier as a backup plan because, deep down, I must have known they would ruin this vacation like every other one. The hotel suite was everything the beach house wasn't. Clean, bright, peaceful, and mine. No cramped storage room. No constant demands. No whispered insults. Just me, sunlight, and silence. I sank into the cushioned lounge chair on the private balcony, sipping iced lemonade as dolphins arched gracefully through the waves below. And for the first time in forever, I felt peace settle over me like a warm blanket. My family had finally gotten what they said they wanted me gone. And I'd finally given myself what I deserved: freedom. By the time my family realized I was gone, the sun had already begun its evening descent, washing the beach house in a soft orange glow that made everything look gentle and peaceful except inside, where chaos was unfolding without me there to manage it. They were stranded with no Wi-Fi, no transportation, no reservations, and no clue how to handle even the simplest tasks. For the first time in their lives, they had to rely on themselves instead of treating me like an unpaid assistant, and the cracks showed immediately. They didn't know the checkout time for the rental property, didn't know where the grocery store was, didn't even know how to log into the reservation. Accounts because they had always handed everything to me with the expectation that I'd just figure it out. I had turned off my phone earlier in the day while sitting on the balcony of my hotel, letting the warm breeze brush across my skin as I read a book, a luxury I hadn't allowed myself in years, because being with my family meant always being on call. When I finally turned my phone back on that evening, the screen exploded with missed calls and frantic messages. My sister tried first, her voice trembling in a voicemail that sounded nothing like the confident, bossy tone she usually weaponized against me. "Where did you go?" "Emily, seriously, this isn't funny. We need the car. Can you pick us up?" Her forced sweetness cracked halfway through, revealing what she really felt: fear. Not for me, but for the inconvenience my absence had caused. I let it ring. Then came my mom, her voice softer than I'd heard in years, as if she was trying on tenderness like a coat she wasn't sure fit her anymore. "Honey, we're worried about you. Please call me back. We didn't mean for you to feel left out." The irony almost made me laugh. They hadn't meant it. They had carved exclusion into me for years. This trip was just another chapter. Finally, my dad's stern, stubborn, eternally indifferent sent a text so short it almost didn't feel real. "We're sorry. Please come back." I stared at those words for a long moment. Not because they moved me, but because they didn't, years ago. That message would have broken me open, would have made me rush home desperate for any scrap of affection. But now, it felt like too little, too late. So I didn't rush to them. I didn't answer. I didn't explain. Instead, I let myself enjoy the vacation they had tried so hard to push me out of. I walked along the shoreline at sunrise, letting the cold Atlantic water numb my feet while the world glowed gold. I ate at a beautiful coastal restaurant where no one compared me to my sister, or told me to lose weight, or asked me why I was always so sensitive. I bought souvenirs for myself, something I had never done before, because my family always sent me back to the gift shop to return things. I laughed with strangers, made small talk with the hotel staff, and for the first time in my life, felt the weight of loneliness without the ache. It was peaceful. It was mine. On the final morning of the trip, checkout day, I drove back to the beach house, just long enough to collect my belongings. They were all waiting outside as if they were expecting a confrontation, standing in a line on the porch, sunburned, exhausted, disheveled, humbled. My sister's eyes were swollen from crying, though I suspected it was mostly frustration at losing her parasailing session. My mom looked 10 years older than she did when we arrived, stress lines etched deep around her mouth. And my dad, the one who rarely showed emotion, actually looked ashamed. It was almost cinematic, the way they stood silently as I approached, their pride swallowed, their usual arrogance replaced by the realization that they had finally pushed me too far. My mom took a hesitant step forward, arms half open as if she expected me to fall into them. "Sweetheart, we're so glad you're okay," she said, her voice wobbly. "We were worried." But I stepped back immediately, my spine straight, my voice steady as the tide. "You said I shouldn't have come," I said, letting the truth land between us like a stone. "So I gave you what you wanted." My sister's face crumpled, and for a split second, I saw guilt flicker across her features, but she didn't apologize. None of them did. They just stood there, their silence louder than any argument. Their lowered heads confirming the truth they didn't dare speak. They had taken me for granted, for so long that they didn't know how to function without me, and for the first time they were forced to confront it. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't give them the dramatic meltdown they probably expected. I simply walked past them into the house, grabbed my suitcase, and walked back out without another word. They watched me with wide, desperate eyes, as if waiting for me to change my mind, to return to my role, to fix everything the way I always did. But I didn't. I placed my suitcase in the trunk of my car, closed it with a soft click, and turned to face them one last time. "I'm going home," I said, not specifying whether I meant the physical home or the emotional one I was finally choosing for myself. "You'll figure things out." They didn't argue. They didn't chase after me. They didn't throw insults or demands. They just stood there, sunburned and silent, letting me leave for once without pulling me back into the cycle. And as I drove away, watching the beach house shrink in the rearview mirror, I felt something I had never felt around them before power. Not the cruel kind they used against me, but the quiet kind that comes with finally choosing yourself. For once in their lives, my family feared losing me, and for the first time, I let them feel it. And as the road stretched out before me, wide and open, I realized something even more powerful. I wasn't going back to who I used to be. They had lost the version of me they could control. From here on out, I belonged to myself.